Okay, first of all, I'll start with APRS. There aren't any events scheduled right now with the exception of Skywarn training. There's an annual Skywarn training. It'll be in April this year. I don't know the specific date yet, but as soon as we find out, we'll let you know. That's a good class. Tom taught it last year, but he's retired, and I don't know if they've got a replacement for him yet. I haven't heard about the level. But anyway, somebody will teach the class. Actually, Tom didn't teach last year. The supervisor.
The head of NWS down there, Jennifer, was involved with it on some of the things, and they were training another dude to sort of take over Tom's place. And I think it was Rick, was his name Rick? I forget.
And I didn't make the open house this year, so I'm not sure.
They've already listed some training sessions on the Pueblo website. And there's one, I think it's April 17th, and
is that a Saturday?
I don't remember whether it was, but it's down in the Mark Dabbling, whatever you want to call that place now, EOC or...
I call it the EOC, they call it the ECC.
Yeah. But there's one down there scheduled so far.
Okay. Well, give you a little background. I'm a member of the ARES organization here. Also a member of the county special communication unit. Also a member of the state auxiliary communications unit. So got a lot of irons. There's been some interest about Winlink. Winlink is a way to actually send email over the internet. Let's see if I can get this all around here now. I mean, over the radio waves. I can't even think and stand up here at the same time. Now, this is a stolen presentation. I just put this slide in front of it here. Here's the real presentation. Phil Sherrod is a name you'll see a lot associated with Winlink. He's one of the developers. The guy lives in Tennessee, and he's got all sorts of training stuff, every question you could answer on the internet. So if you just go to the Winlink website, you'll find all kinds of stuff. And he's not the only one. It's a worldwide system for sending emails via radio. Now that's kind of mind-boggling. I started with it back in 2011, and it's come a long way since then. It's much easier to use than it was. It's pretty doggone powerful, and it's pretty impressive, the capabilities. A lot of federal agencies and state and county using it. If you got a situation where your conventional communications are down and your internet's down and you got to send documents, I mean, we're a document-driven society. And if you take the FEMA classes, they got forms for everything. And you can send all those things via RF. You don't need the internet. You don't have to have the internet. Now, he makes a point about the National Guard in Tennessee. That's where he lives, so yeah, he knows about that. In order to take full advantage of the system, you need to have an account with Winlink. And it's free. You just sign up. They ask for a donation, but you don't have to make one. There are over 10,000 amateurs registered. Once you create an account on Winlink, then it stays there for 400 days of inactivity. So if you don't use it over a 400-day period, then it drops you out. That's a pretty long time and seems reasonable. I don't know really much of anything about shares. Mars, I think we all know about. This is a government system that I'd like to know more about, but for the life of me, I can't run it down. And anytime you have a word that can mean a lot of different things in Google, it's really tough to nail it down. Here's an example from Kentucky. I thought this was, obviously they don't have any communications other than HF. But everything else was wacko, but they could still send email via radio. How many you guys?
That's okay. Actually,
Oh,
too fast.
oh man, go back to the beginning backwards. No extra charge. Emergency communications is really fond of Winlink because of the ability to communicate and send the forms. There's a lot of jargon in the incident management world. IC 213s, IC 205s, IC 209s, and they really can't function without. Now, when I was emergency coordinator in Arkansas, there were a lot of old timer hams in Arkansas, and they were really chafing at the ICS forms for, that it would replace a radiogram that hams have been using for decades. And well, I don't see any reason why we can't use the radiograms. Well, there are a couple things about the radiograms. There are a couple things on the government forms that are missing in the radiogram. It's very important when you're requesting resources to know who the requester is, and what authority do they have. If they don't have the proper authority, it doesn't matter what they're requesting. And they need to make it to the appropriate. I mean, there's a structure in the incident management system, and it's all very nicely organized. Everybody knows their role, and it works smoothly if you get the paper through to them. So it's very popular in the emergency communication area. It's not as fast, especially as wideband internet. So you don't want to be sending monstrous files. You can send pictures, you can send binary files, but you don't want them to get to be too large. Just crank back to the early days of the internet when you're worried about sending a 50K file.
Can I ask you a silly question?
Sure.
When we all got our licenses, we're not allowed to send encrypted data. But so how does this not violate those regulations?
It's not encrypted.
But you can support various levels of security, including message encryption.
Well, for government stuff, hams are still hams, and we still operate under the amateur rules. So, if you're sanctioned under one of the government, like shares, then yeah, you can use encryption. We are not authorized to.
There's a lot of different agencies that use it.
Yeah. I mean, and the government's really getting pretty fond of this. Well, because have you ever been in a situation where the satellite radio's not working and their trunk system's not working and the cell phone system's down? They panic. They go nuts. Well, here's the solution. And they can even send their forms. I mean, they just love it, They'd rather not have to learn how to use it, but they want us to do that for them, Yeah, here's there's some storing on the, so you don't have to be real time, both of you on at the same time. I can send it off to a packet. The packet technology can only be used on VHF or UHF, not on HF. There's not enough bandwidth. When you get down to HF, you have to think in smaller terms because you just don't have the bandwidth to push the information. Oh, God, man, this thing is touching. So here's what you've got. This is the individual operators here. And typically what happens is you get to a remote message server, which is the guy, I'll give you an example. A lot of you know John Bloodgood. He has an RMS station set up at his house because he looked at the map and there weren't many in this area. He found a big 1,000-mile open spot, so he says, I'll set one up. And since he set it up, it's been pretty active. And then he can go to the internet And then there are 5 common message servers around the world. And this really makes a whole network of email capability. And the thing about it is, you can send a message to another ham, or you can send it to somebody on the internet that doesn't know anything about amateur radio. So once that thing gets to the internet, it can come back to a ham or to a pop mail server or any kind of mail server. So it's pretty doggone powerful. It's all free if you choose not to donate to Winlink when you download the software. It will nag you every time. How much does it cost to get involved? Well, the cheapest way is $100 right here. You got your transceiver. All you need is a little box like this guy right here. This is called a signal link, and it's roughly $100, more or less. You can buy it with cables for your specific radio, and there's some jumpers in here to set or get a plug set in. But this is a sound card interface to your radio. And that plus your radio can get you going with Winlink. So it's not a whole lot. Now, this first guy right here is faster, of course. And they say 1,500. This one was about 1,150. It turns out this format, this backdoor format, is more efficient at transmitting the data. It's faster than Winmore, but Winmore's cheaper. If you go up to VHF, UHF, you can get into packet technology, AX.25, and of course get more throughput, but it takes a more expensive piece of hardware. Or you can put the software on your computer and use the cheaper box and send a packet. So there's a program called Sound Modem that really works well. And unlike most Windows programs, you just execute the executable. It doesn't make registry entries. It doesn't depend on DLLs, and it's all self-contained, and it makes you capable of doing packet. So that is very good. You can also telnet direct, if you have an internet connection to your PC, you can telnet through Winlink out on the internet. So you could create a message to yourself at your email address and send it out through your radio. Well, actually to the computer. In that case, it wouldn't go through the radio. It goes to the computer, internet. I don't really know this satellite business, or I don't know much about these others, but pretty powerful system. Oh, man! Why is this thing so touchy in here? As soon as it discovers me, what happened? I'll sync here. Probably a little bit charged up, so. Well, that's not what I see.
There's a PowerPoint I
Oh,
found
at
down
the bottom.
Yeah, but it's not, that's not what I'm seeing.
Hit escape.
Oh.
That takes you out of full screen. There you go.
Yes. Now I gotta try to find, what in the world? All right. This thing jumped ahead, of course. When you, the first time you bring up Winlink, it will prompt you to, I needed to go over a little jargon here. It's referred to as Winlink 2000. I'm not sure exactly why now, but some people call it Winlink, some people call it Winlink 2000. The actual program is RMS Express, which is the old name. So the executable is RMS Express. So there's a little bit of jargonese here that you have to wade through, but when you first bring, yeah, you can see it's RMS Express. When you first bring it up the first time, it will prompt you to create an account. And it's real simple. You just fill it out, send it in. They want to be sure you're a ham, and they'll give you a password to use, and then you can change it to whatever you want to. After that, then this will be the first screen that you'll see when you bring it up. And the thing I want to point out is you got an inbox, well, inbox and an outbox and sent. I mean, it looks like an email system. It's got a few wrinkles. There should be somewhere. Should be over here is where you select the different ways of communicating. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But to create a message, you click on message, and that'll be the next screen. It has message folders also. All right, here Phil is creating a message, and it fills in from him, and then you just put in the call letters, the him you want to send it to, you know. And he will have an address that will be his call sign at winlink.org automatically. Everybody that has an account has that address. So you can just send him an email to his call sign. I mean, that's pretty neat. And typically now there's a couple things to watch when you're doing this. Can you see it? Yeah, here it is. There's a difference between a Winlink message and a peer-to-peer message. Winlink, you're going to send it to the system, and it'll work at getting it to the end user. Hold it until he checks for it. Peer-to-peer, you're online direct, and on a common frequency, real time, and you're not getting involved with RMS servers or CMS servers. You're just going radio to radio. But the message type, if you've got the message set up as a Winlink message, and you're trying to do peer-to-peer, and you call that station, message won't leave your outbox because it wasn't set up to be peer-to-peer. So that's just something to watch. And I think it defaults to Winlink. So if you're doing peer-to-peer, pay attention to that one. Because hey, what happened? I had that message. It will also, you can check that you want an acknowledgement. And this is the kind of acknowledgement you would get if you check that. And it has built-in picture cropping. You need some capability to get that size down as much as you can. There's some other tools. I think FL Digi has a tool, does it, to do some cropping? Not sure. I shouldn't talk about it. Did I skip one? Yeah, I did. I don't know if we could get back to where we could see this. Ooh, what's going on there? All right. Oh yeah, it's this one. This is message. They don't have there's a screen missing here. After you create the message, what you would do is open a session. This button right here, and when you open the session, you want to tell it what kind of session you want to open. Pactor is using the more expensive modem. Winlink is using the sound card interface kind of thing. And you have to choose between Linmore or peer-to-peer. There are a lot of different choices there. When you open the session, then the session gives you a chance to choose a channel. And when you choose a channel, what is going on? It's skipping. Are these guys out of sick? Oh, anyway. When you say I want to choose a channel, it'll show you what's currently available and also give you an estimate of the path quality and the reliability. I'm not exactly sure. These aren't based on actual measurements, they're based on calculations and some parameters. But it's very helpful. In this case, he's doing Pactor. That's all the modes are Pactor modes. I should mention briefly, P4, there are 4 levels of Pactor. Pactor 1, lots of TNCs, terminal node controllers, can do Pactor 1. I think Pactor 2 and 3 and 4 can only be done by SCS modems. SCS modems are made in Germany and nobody else makes them, and they're proprietary and they're more expensive. And you have to have a license in the radio to use the mode. Pactor 4 has not been approved by the SEC for use in the United States, even though it doesn't use any more bandwidth than Pactor 3. It's more characters per second. It violates the 300 characters per second rule, so the FCC's never signed off on it. Only in certain emergencies will they allow Pactor 4. Those modems are more expensive even than the Pactor 3, so they are $1,500 enough. Anyway, you see some P4s, P3s, but we're not doing P4s in this country. But this is, I find, very helpful to find actually this thing is so smart, when I click, if you click on one, it'll automatically tune the radio to that frequency and set the call sign in and everything. Just click it. So that's pretty nice. This was, at the time he made these slides, that the Pactor RMS stations, the intermediate stations around the world. And there were quite a few. I think there are probably more now. This is lots of capability built into the network redundancy. Oh, man, this thing's crazy. What is going on?
Loves you, Armstead.
It's not made for old
I
friends.
think there's some static electricity here or something.
Improper grounding.
Actually, I'm powering this off of this battery right here. I'm not plugged into the mains.
Well, that's the problem, there's no green wire ground.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, the conventional system, you know, stuff. Now, the whole point of this presentation that Phil Sherrod put together was that Leon Panetta, when he was the Department of Defense Secretary, had talked about a cyber Pearl Harbor attack, where communication infrastructure's all completely a mess. And that would be a bad thing. There's been a lot of talk lately about foreign entities having the ability to get into our power grids and our communication systems and wreak havoc. I hope that we don't experience that, but if we did, this would be a very important system to have a handle on.
There you go.
I think we found the secret here. Okay, this is what happens if the internet's down. You saw the internet was in the middle of that architecture before. It can revert to a radio-only structure. And it puts a little more load on the end users because you have to choose 3 intermediate stations that you think you can reach, and then it goes from there on to other stations. But by God, it can work without any internet. And you can't say that much about much other communication, so it's pretty impressive.
Armstead, the diagram you're showing shows connections, a wireless connection with the RMS.
Yes.
That's different than peer-to-peer, is that correct?
Correct.
So there's 2 ways to communicate without the internet? Say the power grid goes
Yeah,
down,
yeah.
or the internet goes down?
Obviously, if you can reach the other station directly, you don't need any
Sure.
intermediate. But that doesn't always happen, so.
Do the RMSs have good power backup? Can they operate for days or weeks or
Oh,
months if the
well,
power grid goes down?
I really don't know the answer. Some do, I'm sure some are better than others.
Depends on if my cell's
Anybody, how many people, I should have started with this, how many people in here use Winlink? Yeah, that's good, that's a good start. How many people now think they might take a look at it? One nice thing about it, you download one program, Winlink, or RMS Express. You download one program, it's free to get your account, it's quick, it's not as long as getting a lot W set up. That's the most convoluted thing I ever saw. And you can get going pretty easy. Oh, the other point I wanted to make, for packet, I mentioned TNCs. A lot of radios have it built in these days. And so this little guy right here can send packet on VHF, UHF, as long as you can, they can put a better antenna on it. Are we in the,
No, we're not. This is out at the house. My computer needed an update, and it's something. And I do have a few things to say here on it if you when you have a chance.
okay, well, I just, I think I can, I think we did. Yeah, one other thing about the packet technology that's really good is it's error-free. FL Digi, if you get an error in there, it just stays. And another thing about FL Digi, well, there's several things about FL Digi. There are many different modules, and I get confused about which one you're supposed to have running when, and who should start first, and who should end, and all that stuff. But Winlink is one program. Yeah, I can't really address the mesh. So it's a pretty powerful way of communicating, supporting forms, pictures, whatever.
Armstead, a mesh network allows you to have other nodes that can communicate through them so that if you can't reach me, but I can reach Bob, Bob can get that message and it spreads out.
Oh, yeah, I'm at a little bit of a loss. I mean, this is basically a Wi-Fi network with radio connections, right? RF connections.
Yeah.
I'd love to have one, but I don't know how to get there from here. I just read an article saying that there's some new hardware, or new, what they call Wi-Fi 6.
Arden, something like that.
That looks like it would really contribute to this. this is two excellent sources for information, and you can just Google Winlink and just get flooded. But winlink.org and QRZ, and W4PHS, that's Phil Sherrod. And there's also a guy named Frost, I think, that's put together a bunch of stuff. I mean, he's just got tutorial after tutorial after tutorial. Take you through this. Let me see if I can do a quick. I don't know if I can do this with this touchy computer, but do a little quick connect here.
It looks like Winlink will run on Linux also.
Yes, another version.
Well, that's interesting. They've changed the program so it says Winlink Express. So this is my Winlink Express. You can see it's got my call baked in here. If I go to the settings page, this is a one-time setup deal here. And if I get on a different computer and I put in my call and my password, then filled everything else out. Pulled it down, if it got internet connection. So you fill that in, it's got your grid square, it's got some information. You fill that in once, you're done. Now, if you want to open a session, let me show you these sessions here. Packet P2P, I'm glad I did this, because what I wanted to show you was for the chart. Packet Winlink. Open session. Opens this box. Now the first thing it does is try to see if it can talk to the TNC. In this case, there's a USB connection between the radio, which is it's got the built-in TNC, and if it's happy, you'll know it. It's not always going to be happy. It's USB, it's Windows, it's not always. Sometimes I have to close this and open it again, or, but anyway. Then, okay, channel selection. We mentioned that, so we'll go to channel selection. And there are two options for updating this. I hate the way this is showing up here. Little Windows, I can't seem to make this bigger. What if I make its daddy bigger?
Yeah.
Will that help it? I've got to find the cursor. I still on my other computer I can see the frequencies and everything, but anyway, what's key to me in this case is how far away it is, because I've got a little short antenna here. I'm not going to be communicating on 2 meters, 152 miles away with this rubber duck. So anyway, the top guy up here is 145.050. Trust me on that.
Armstead, how did it find those? Did it know your location somehow from the radio, or?
No, well, it does know, but I don't.
It's in your,
It fills it in.
it's in, when you register your.
Well, but I mean, you can real time update things.
Yeah.
I didn't show
Either
you.
by the radio or that, but it's also when you're.
I'm not on the internet.
Profile.
I'm not connected to the internet, so I can't show you updating. You have a choice of updating with the radio or the internet. Obviously, the radio would be slower. But anyway, let's assume that that's all good. And let's see if we can communicate. See if we can communicate. Now this is a pretty typical message. It says I'm trying to connect to KE0GB. Turn the volume up. We'll see if we can actually do it.
Do you know where he is?
No, I don't. Well, he's close. He's only 23 miles away. Well, let's see. What Barry and I were gonna try to do was send a direct message across the room.
Before my computer decided to do an update. That's something.
I connected to this station earlier from sitting over there, so I don't know what's going on
I
there.
can't get it from here. Armstead.
Yeah, it's Rick down in Colorado Springs somewhere.
Yeah. Well, we could try one of the others. This is not uncommon experience.
99% line.
This is now, see, it's telling me to set it to 144, 930. Let's try this one.
Yeah, he's near Academy Boulevard, south of Woodman. That's kind of hard from here.
Yeah, see, I brought a better antenna, but I pulled the connector off them. You know, it's unloading. So that's not gonna work. What I don't understand is why we're not hearing it. Turned the volume down earlier. Oh, well, I can't hear it because I'm picking up the station. Well, anyway, if it would connect, it would handshake, check, see if there are any messages sitting there for me, and what, if they were there, it would pull it down to my inbox and I could look at the message. I actually have some trial messages in the inbox.
I'm sorry, are you trying to connect to an RMS or a peer-to-peer?
RMS.
It looks like there's a few VHF RMS stations around. Like in El Paso County, is there any idea how many there are?
Only two that I know of. And there's one in Utah that's really good and usually works. Works more often than anything else that I've tried. I don't know if I can get confused. Let's just go to Winlink. Session. And you get a little different display here. This is really a nice display for when you get connected, because you can kind of see what's going on in terms of this is connection straight, and if it gets you get some decoding of what's going on here. Ideally, I think you're supposed to get a diagonal, an X in this box. And when it's working, it's really great. Now, it's telling me it couldn't find the TNC, and there's a good reason for that. It's not plugged in. No. But I was trying to see if we could look at the channel. Doesn't look like it's going to let us do that.
I just connected back here. I just connected back here, so.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to go too far because I don't have an antenna for that. I've got the radio right here. And anyway, hopefully I haven't messed it up too bad. Oh, I was going to show you, this is my inbox here. See, I actually had a message in the outbox in case Barry and I got hooked up. It's from me to Barry, and a little simple message. And I've got it set up here as peer-to-peer. So if we've gotten hooked up, we'd we'd have sent that little message out. Here's just a little quick message that we did at the EOC here, just to be sure everything was working. All right. Any questions? Hope this has stimulated some interest. Okay, well, thanks for your time. Oh, sure, yeah.
To communicate. Armstead's got so much money, he does not know what to do with it. Okay, yeah, he buys Gearview with his $1,500 modem. You don't need one that much. I built this one for $60. Okay, this is for packet only. The Winlink has a built-in HF modem in it, so you don't really need to buy one. It's already built in. But packet, you have to have something else. If you do any kind of digital stuff, you need to get yourself a signal link, because that's just a sound card. Okay, but there's a FL Digi goes into it, Winlink goes into it, a lot of other audio modes go into it. All that stuff you did up here with the link in the link, this is a Pi. It's called a Pi gate. Okay, you hook it up, creates a hotspot. You take your phone, connect to the hotspot, write your message, boom, this automatically sends it out. You can do it 50, 100, 200 at a time. So, so that's an emergency situation. So, and that runs about $130, $140 something else. But for emergency situations, because for an operator to sit there and have all these people coming to them and say, I want you to send an email to so-and-so, send an email to so-and-so. You're sitting there forever trying to do something on the computer. You don't have time for everybody else. This thing here, everybody else is doing the work for you, and this is just sending it. Anyway, it's just there's two different things on the Winlink. One's HF, one is VHF. HF you can take care of itself, basically, but it works better if you have the money to go ahead and put it to a pack to a modem, but you don't need it. This is for VHF. This is for VHF with the sound modem. That's $100. Sound modem is free, so it works a lot better. So
Hold up that signal link box. So Armstead pointed to that, you've got one, that's what you need if your radio doesn't have a built-in sound card. But the later radios are building it in, like both of those
right.
sitting over there.
Oh,
You've got a USB port on the back and there's a sound card inside, and that is really sweet.
Yeah, that's like I said, this is just a sound card, and this is it's when you start doing digital, your audio levels, you're constantly kind of dicking with them to getting your audio levels correct, because if you don't get it correct, it's not going to work. But yeah, this is you're doing digital. If you don't have a fancy radio, you need one of these. So anyway, thank you.
Okay, again, anybody that's got DMR code plugs that